4, 3, 2, 1. This is Deducter bringing you set 2 of the Day 2 Pro League playoffs between Rolster and STX. So in this game, we have Action versus Classic. Action is the Zerg player, the white Zerg player at the 3 o'clock position, and Classic is the Terran at the 6 o'clock. This is the map Fortress, 2nd edition, the Fortress rather. So, there we see Action there, the best Zerg player on KT, although I still think he's more or less a mediocre Zerg, maybe slightly above average, certainly not in the ranks of your Zeros or your Hydras or your Jadongs. Although Zero can be kind of inconsistent still. He's been doing well recently. He has not suffered too much from his defeat at the hands of Flash in the MSL Finals. He's bounced back reasonably well. Anyway, Classic on the other hand, Terran player on STX. Again, not one of the highest caliber players around, but certainly capable in his own right in the Pro League here. This is the map, the Fortress, 2nd edition. So one other thing to note, of course, is in that first game, Flash, his anti-carrier build not quite working out for him this time. It appears that the Protoss adjustment has been to build more ground units and be more aggressive with them. I think using pure carriers would get absolutely annihilated. Even mostly carriers and a few ground units would still get absolutely annihilated, but these days Protoss are much better actually using their carriers as support units. Plus they're much better at getting more bases so they can actually afford the ground units they need to deal with this. Anyway, looks like Classic just going to blockade his front with the barracks and the supply depot, whereas Action has gone in the incorrect direction by the way with his Overlord. Classic is 45% against Zerg, it looks like. So, it is his worst matchup, actually. He is 50% overall. So, that's respectable, certainly. Nothing to be ashamed of, I feel. Although, always nice, of course, if he can pick his game up a little bit. On the other hand, Action, one of these mediocre players, 48% overall. Only 42% against Terran, apparently. So, again, not the best of players that are brought out here on this particular map. So, Fortress, by the way, is this sort of map with the walls, hence the name of Fortress, and apparently in ZVT is quite Terran favored over 14 games. Terran has won 9 and Zerg has won 5. Still, I tend to be a bit more hesitant to say these statistics, being that this map is clearly Terran favored. Looking at the terrain, I would have to agree, because there are walls, a lot of walls, which tend to be advantageous towards the Terran player, for the Terran player, whereas Zerg really need to pull off good flanking and surround maneuvers to deal with Terran. But I don't think is by any means settled. For instance, there is a Mulus harass, for instance, could be quite devastating at the natural. I believe there is the cliff overlooking the natural. Although these days Zerg don't really use Mulus too much on SEVs. Mulus harass at the main I don't think would be too effective. And 2 starports coming down from Classic. So, another interesting game. 2-port Wraith against Zerg. This will depend entirely on how good Classic's Wraith Micro is, and I had neglected, obviously, mention the fact that there's a factory built and the Sunken Colony is going to be morphed in response to this to deal with the first Vulture coming out. Pretty standard stuff for Terran going mech. I mean, none of this is unusual. Anyway, this drone, how did it... Oh, right, using the mining the mineral trick allows drones to pass through artifacts, I see. So, interesting, this drone just wanted to see whether there was a hidden No, it couldn't be. The drone just wants to check for a proxy at that location. That's actually kind of smart. So, very important, I feel, in general, and it looks like that Overlord did manage to spot out the incoming star ports, so there is a Hydroden going down with a Spire simultaneously. I think Hydras, for instance, very good against Wraith as long as there aren't too many of them. And Scourge, of course, are fantastic against a small number of Wraiths too. Although, these days, the good Terran Wraith Microers, especially Lita, although, geez, when was the last time you heard Lita? Not really known for anything else anymore these days, except his Wraith Micro is still amazing to watch. So two Wraith coming out, it's not like there's any point for Classic tied it. I think he knows that Action has spotted this. Now these Wraiths are going to come in and do as much damage as they can before the Hydras coming out, are able to come out. The first Hydra's out here, these Wraiths picking away a bit at the Hydra. I don't think this will really work, but nevertheless, Action is going to be in a bit of trouble actually with that first Hydra going down. Reasonably good micro here from Classic, considering he only has two Wraiths, and he might be able to kill two Hydras with two Wraiths there. That's pretty impressive work here. So, very nice by Action, I have to say. He's practiced his Wraith micro. Those Wraiths are somewhat damaged, though. He would be wise to probably retreat and mass up more Wraiths. He's got more now in front, 4 Wraiths probably, one of which goes down to the Hydras. He's going to pick off yet another Hydra. This is like a Mulus harass in reverse. Action probably not quite expecting Classic to be so aggressive or perhaps even good with his Wraiths. So now, though, the Wraiths are forced to back off. Turrets are coming up, and the Wraiths will be repaired. So there was some damage done. It wasn't any sort of critical damage. Action getting Scourge out, too. I think that is wise. Scourge plus Mulus. He's got Overlord speed, good, to deal with any potential cloaking action. So the Mulus is going to run into turrets. They will be forced to back off. No point in fighting against the Wraiths under the protection of turrets. So, not that he has too many Mulus either, forced to morph Hydralisk to deal with these Wraiths. So, Classic certainly demonstrating that he has ability here with the Wraith. He hasn't inflicted any sort of critical damage, killing a few Hydras and 2 drones and an Overlord. Not going to bother Action too much. However, Action has left absolutely nothing at his main to defend, and Classic could do some good damage here. He's got Cloaked Wraith coming in. Action is going to be forced to pull all his Air Force back to deal with this. Looks like 3 or 4 drones going down here. Wraiths unleashing a salvo of missiles there. Another drone going down. Missiles going down on the Mulus. Looks like, and the Wraith managing to escape in time. Sniping the Scourge. That was some sick micro there by Classic, I have to say. And Classic, the great thing about clicking your Wraiths is that even though Deducter can spot them with the Overlord, you can either kill the Overlord, or when you withdraw your Wraiths, Zerg player will lose sight of them and will not quite sure. They will not be sure where the Wraiths are. So you can see there that Action is concerned about this. He's sent out some Air Force just to take a look around the map. Where are those Wraiths? He must be wondering. Whereas with Mulus, they obviously cannot cloak, and is a bit harder to hide them. I think this sort of surprise advantage could be instrumental in victory here for Classic. Classic splitting up a small force of his Wraiths, perhaps as a feint. In the north there, Wraiths can cloak and try to escape, and it appears to have somewhat worked. It has distracted Action just a little bit. Action, though, does not appear to have fallen for it. He's brought his main force of Mulus back south. 2 Wraiths coming in from the north. They need to probably either attack something or try to distract Action here. Action apparently is not going to be distracted by that. So the feint maneuver here not quite working out for Classic. Both players appears to be sitting at a fairly even food count at this point, just looking at the bottom right-hand corner of the map there. But now more of a transition to Medic Marines coming out here by Classic, as is fairly typical for these Wraith plays. Wraith in conjunction with Medic Marines can be very devastating. Classic, again, he's built up a significant force of Wraiths, but he hasn't really managed to accomplish too much with it. On the other hand, Action, with a good force of Mulus, also has not really done too much with his force. I would have to say that Classic obviously got the better of most of these exchanges thus far. But another Wraith here, Cloak, perhaps it's going to try to feint and draw off some of these Mulus. That is exactly what Classic is trying to do. He's going to see some more Mulus here of Actions in the main here, and these Wraiths are going to be forced to withdraw, getting cloaked and whatnot. Another Scourge snipe there, very nicely done. Now both Mulus forces of Actions have been united in the main here, and so not too much that Classic can do to deal with all these Mulus. Except maybe morph 2 Valkyries, that would crush the Mulus without issue. And the Mulus would be running scared from the Valkyries, and then the Wraiths would have free reign, but that is not what he's opted to go for. He's, of course, transitioned into Medic Marines. It looks like a good force now out. So Medic Marines in conjunction with Wraith would also absolutely devastate Mulus. Action needs to be very careful here. I think he would be wise to have something to deal with the Medic Marines. Perhaps Zerglings, probably his best bet, since I doubt he will have the resources to afford lurkers. He's got probably 2 control groups of Mulus, it looks like, and he's going to launch a massive attack here at the main while the Medic Marines are out of position, picking off turrets in short order. These Wraiths not going to be too effective because there are Overlords spotting action with so many Mulus. The Wraith force has been suffered horrendous casualties, I have to say. The Medic Marines coming in, but coming in mostly single file, being blocked by their own buildings. Things not working out too well here for Classic, I have to say, but Action taking quite a few losses here, and Classic is going to be able to ward this off, it looks like. So I would say that Action has probably come out ahead in that exchange. But Classic has hardly been crippled yet. Action perhaps taking the initiative back. The advantage I feel with Action's, he also has +1 armor upgrade. That actually gives him an upgrade advantage for now. I don't think +1 infantry attack is finished here for Classic, so that's actually going to help the survivability on his Air Force substantially. One thing is that, of course, Action has kept Classic in his base from pushing out. And he's whittled down the Wraith count significantly. There are perhaps fewer than half a dozen Wraiths left for Classic, or maybe he's managed to rebuild a few here. He does have slightly more than a dozen. Scourge coming in, I believe, just to take a peek and scout. He's going to catch some of these Wraiths that are still damaged. He's going to do some more damage. Massive attack again by Action. With the Scourge not quite working out, though, not quite hitting on any of the Wraiths. Big battle here, impossible to tell who's coming out ahead. I think this time Classic might actually get the upper hand in this particular exchange. He's killing all sorts of units, and Action might be wise to retreat here. Action, this time I feel he has come out behind significantly so. And so, still Action is persisting with his attack. I'm not sure whether that is wise. I think he would be, again, smart to mix in some sort of ground units with his Mulus force. Pure Mulus, I don't think will get it done this game, but he knows better than I do. He is a pro gamer. Massive attack here coming in. He does have the +1 air armor upgrade. That's going to help a lot, so perhaps that's why he's persisting with these Mulus. Both players fighting over this wall here. All sorts of infantry. They cannot, of course, go over the wall. Action has put down an expansion there at the 5 o'clock. He could cleverly morph like Sunkens there, or spore colonies or something. Maybe he's bringing out a drone to do that. Maybe that's just a rally drone. Regardless, Action picking off the odd infantry or two here, picking off a Wraith with good micro. Both players microing their air forces, it looks like here. Missiles versus glaive worms. Now we have an infantry force pushing out here for Classic. Classic feels like he needs to do some sort of damage. His economy is not looking too good. Scourge spotting this, so Action knows what's going on. Action, I think he can attack some more and then retreat his forces in time to defend. It should be quite possible the infantry have to take a long route, and that is exactly what Action is doing. Good maneuver here. He should probably be wise to finish off the Wraiths and then rush back to his base, finish off the infantry, and it will be victory. He's managed to split the forces here of and Action retreating all his drones from his natural. I'm not sure what Action is doing. Action had an opportunity here to defeat the armies separately. Massive attack here coming in by Classic, and Action delaying the return to his natural. This is a disaster for Action. This is what happens when you can't destroy your army in detail, and splitting up your army has great risk and great reward. And in this case, Classic coming out here on top by splitting up his forces. He is almost certainly going to take the game. He's going to take down all the attack here, and no more Mulus or Hydras are going to be able to come out from Action. This is surely GG, and Action just not with the best decision making. I thought he was going for attack and just going to withdraw his forces to save his base in time. Action, though, I don't know what he was trying to do. Perhaps he got too distracted. Perhaps he just wasn't paying attention. Perhaps, I don't know. GG coming from Action. This is certainly not a loss that he should have taken, and he does not look too happy about this. But again, splitting up your forces has a great danger. If Action moved his Mulus back and morphed some Zerglings, he would have been able to wipe out that